The project originates from a series of conversations that John and I had about the art school that we both studied at in the early 1980s called Great Yarmouth College of Art and Design, and the fact that that institution had been closed, but most significantly for us, the building in which we both studied was actually up for sale. And we started wondering whether that was a unique thing that had happened just to Great Yarmouth as a phenomenon, or whether this was something broader and wider.
And we started gathering bits and pieces of information, didn't we? And when we visited other towns and cities, we'd seek out, see if there was an art school building there. And we discovered that there was a sort of pattern started to emerge where there were lots of sometimes quite grand buildings that were either in state of disrepair or they'd been repurposed. And in some cases they'd been demolished. And it started to become clear to us that there was a story here that we hadn't come across before, which was that there was a history of art education going back to the 19th century that was still present in one form or another. But the buildings were sort of standing there, representing, kind of histories of things that had already passed.
So over, really quite a long period of time, we started to gather more information, and I started to make more pictures based on the sites. And we then received quite a lot of invitations to give talks about the project, and then eventually we received an invitation to develop it into a publication. And then out of that publication, we started to think about it as being something which could work as a gallery exhibition. And I think then we started to be, ambitious that the work would be rewarding for the viewer, so in terms of the scale and the way we could display the photos. And then an integral part of that was the use of kind of extended captions, which give a kind of narrative, a story about what was and what is and what's happened. And it was important also, I think, that the photos are very contemporary. It's not of the past, it's of the present.
I think it's important that the photographs kind of work together as a set in a way. So there's often jarring juxtapositions of kind of grand, Gothic piles and a Boots optician on the high street. And it's not immediately clear, apart from the fact that the context is the art schools of a particular region, why those particular places have been photographed. But the stories are kind of put together, so they create there's a kind of narrative, isn't there, of the region that builds up through this selection of sites.
It's very much an ongoing series of images. It's not really, these are not unique pieces of art in themselves. It's more of the kind of sense of a series. And we're not really interested in one specific institution. We're interested in the whole, what I'd call an ecology of art education. So the fact that there were so many art schools, and there was obviously a lot of traffic between them, both in terms of students and staff. There was that kind of network, I think, that's why we have the maps, because then you can actually see the relationship between these art schools and where they were. Another element really that started to evolve was that there are kind of sometimes clues to what the building's original purpose was, that you can actually see, like the word art might be literally carved in stone on the side of the building. And when we came to do the show here at the Bonington Gallery, we were looking at the Waverley building on the first visit, and the first thing we noticed was these stone figures, heads, portraits carved that are very high up. In fact, you can't really see them very clearly, of what were considered to be the most eminent artists at the time when the building was built. And we thought it would be interesting to, one of these for this show would be to focus on those details and bring them literally down to earth. So the viewer has a very different relationship with them. They're in a way kind of become a prompt for thinking about what kind of histories of art do we want to talk about now? What's the narrative? What's the story we're going to tell? That's a very Victorian version of art history, but we're in a very different place now. And I think one of the things for the show, which is exciting, is that the gallery have coordinated a series of events, which hence all the tables and chairs, in which those kind of discussions can take place.
Outside the main gallery, in the vitrines, there's a collection of archival materials, both from the University Archive and from Nottingham Archives, and researchers have put together a series of documents and photographs and other ephemera, to tell the story of Nottingham Art School through history.
I think what's interesting for me about it is what people have told us. I mean, one of the things that's come out of the exhibitions is people have felt that what their decision in life to go to art school has been validated, that there's been recognition that they made that decision. Even though they're not famous artists, even though they're not, they haven't necessarily even had a career as an artist or a designer, that decision at quite a young age, 16, 18, has really informed their life. And seeing a picture of the building that they once studied in, even if it's only the site, has kind of confirmed for them something about that there was something important about that decision, and they're part of a really complex and interesting and rich history.